I'm going to put on the recording. So also people often ask for captions. I think they can set it up themselves, but anyway, I've enabled closed captioning. I can see that they're visible here. You know what, I'm gonna I'm gonna hide it because it just oftentimes the captions are not accurate and they can become a distraction. But someone can always get it for themselves. We have to get back into the swing here. So, hi everybody, Shabbat Shalom, Happy Hanukkah. If you happen to have a Chanukiah menorah in your room and you can sit near it and put your camera on, I think it would be kind of cool to have some menorahs on. But also, it's great to see all of you. We'll probably be muting people for most of the service. But we'd love to see faces, and you know, it creates a sense of community. So if you want to join us visually, that's great. Well, I tried.
Just you and me.
Yeah, I guess so. That's all right. So how are you doing? No one else is here.
Good. Wonderful. Thank you.
You going away?
Life is good.
Yeah.
Life is good. Yeah.
Yeah,
all is well.
All right. So of course you can always communicate with people in the chat. Nothing new there. And people can wish Shabbat Shalom to one another, and you know, in the chat, it's okay. It's like talking to your neighbor at services. Oh, we've got another visual.
Great.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Did you get home okay?
Yeah, I did. No problem. We're in the only place in the country that's 80 degrees right now, but and we came back to this. But it's okay. I actually could have stayed out there and done this service from there. Think about it.
Well, we're going to Mexico on Sunday. It's 80 degrees there too.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's good to see all of you. So we are back on Zoom, and we just happen to think this would be a good idea for the last couple of weeks of 2022 to be on Zoom. And little did we know it would be going down to 9 degrees tonight. So it was definitely a good idea. This is a multiple holiday weekend, and I'm not talking about non-Jewish holidays necessarily here. We have Rosh Chodesh, the new month, today, Shabbat, and tomorrow for Tevet. And of course, Hanukkah is starting to wrap up in its final days. So with that, there isn't much that changes in terms of the liturgy. There are a couple of little things here and there, but definitely a festive time and a time to join together. And I'm glad we can be together, and we have a minyan, more than a minyan. So we're going to begin. No one is muted at the moment, but you are certainly free to mute if you feel you want to sing along, because it otherwise, as you know, gets a little bit disruptive. Not in a bad way, but in a disruptive way. So anyway, feel free to sing along. We'd love to have you do that, but in which case, definitely mute for most of the service. And especially if someone else is in the room talking to you. Or you're watching the news. Okay, so let's begin the service. And we will do that. By the way, if you have the PDF with you, we're on page 3. Or if you have the prayer book, Lev Shalem. Yedid nefesh avarachaman, Yedid nefesh avarachaman, Meshoch El Ritzonach, Meshoch Avdach, El Ritzonach, Yarutz Avdach, Kemawayal, Ishtachavemu, Mula Hadarach, Ki Yerav Lo, Yedidutach, Mino Fetsuf, Vechol Tam. And we move now to page 11.
You didn't leave me.
Adonai, Naria Letzur, Yishenu, Nikadma Fanav, Vitoda, Izmirot, Naria Lo, Nikadma Fanav, Vitoda, Izmirot, Naria.
Simply because of the various research that you've done.
I'd like to ask that everyone mute yourselves.
But this book has been gestating within me ever since I was a scientifically literate.
Okay. There we go. Arbaim shana kut bedor, Yamam toei levavhem behem lo yadu derachai, asher nishpati ve'api im yavon el menuchati. And we're on page 13 as we go through the Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms. Shirul Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shirul Adonai, Kol Haaretz, Shirul Adonai, Abachu Shemo, Basru Meyam Leyam Yeshuato, Zapru Bagoyim Kevodo, Bechol La'amim Niflotav, Ki Gadol Adonai, Umahulal me'od narahu al kol Elohim ay ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim ba'adonai shamayim masa od ve'hadar lefanav oz ve'tiferet ve'mikdasho havul Adonai mishbechot ha'amim havul Adonai ka'avod va'oz havul Adonai Kevod Shema So Mincha Uval Chatzrotav Ay Ishtachavu Ladonai Behadra Kodesh Hilu Mipanav Kol Haaretz Imru Bagoyim Adonai Malach Avtikon Tevel Baltimot Yadin Amim Yismechu Amashamay Melagel Haaretz Yiram Hayam Umelo Yalod Sadai Vechol Asher Bo Ay Azir Anenu Kolatzei Lifnei Adonai Kiva Lishpot Haaretz Yishpot Tevel Betzedek Ve'amim Be'amunato Ay lai la lai 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 la la lai Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Yai, lai, lai, lai. And let's read on page 19 on the left side this invitation to enter Shabbat, this Tel Aviv prayer by Beit Tfilah Yisraeli, the congregation in Tel Aviv. Blessed is your coming, Shabbat. Blessed is your coming. Bring with you rest and peace following a tumultuous week filled with so many demands. Bring the space in which, with others and alone, we can shape an infinity of dreams. Bring the hour of forgiveness in which to hear the pounding heart of another human being. Blessed is your coming, Shabbat. Blessed is your Creator. Blessed is your light. And now let's move on to Lecha Dodi, and we'll be going through the whole prayer. Of course, we stand at the last verse to welcome the Shabbat. Hey, die, 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 die. Hey, die, 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 die. Die, die, da, na, 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 na. Hey, nine, 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 nine. Hey, nine, 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 nine. Hey, nine, 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 nine. Hey, nine, 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 nine. Hey, lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hey, lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamur v'zachor b'dibor echad ishmi'anu elam yuchad Adonai echad hu shemo echad l'shem ultiferet ve'elitila echad odi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshavat chila lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela mikdash melech melucha kumitzei mitocha fecharav lach shebek b'mekabacha beruach hamol alayichem la lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela itna ari me'afar kumi livshi bigdei tifartecha mi'al yad ben yishai ve'talach mikavo el nafshi ge'ala lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela hitorari kiva orech kumi uri shir daber kevod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lo tevoshi velo tikalmi ma tishtochachi umatemi bach yechesu ani eyami v'nivneta irati la lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela ay min ismisha shimsa shosayich leka kukol mevalayich yasis alayich elayich imsos chatan alkala lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela ayamin usmol tifrot tziviyat Adonai ta'aritzi al yadish ben parti v'nismecha v'nagila lecha dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. בואי בשלום, עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה. פני שבת נקבל, איי די די, איי די די די, ינאי נאי 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 נאי. Ananai, yananai, yanai, nananai, yanai, nanai, yananai, nananai, yananai, nai, yananai, nai, nai, yai, dai, 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 dai. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone. So we found in the past, as we've done all Zoom, that it makes sense to give people a chance to participate a little bit so that it's not all one way. And so I wondered if anyone has a story from this Hanukkah, since we're already nearing the conclusion of it. Anything particular? It doesn't have to be spectacular, just like a surprise or seeing a family member or whatever. So anyone like to share a story?
I will.
Go ahead, Sue.
So our family, we have kids in Westport and kids in Atlanta, and we were all together for the first night of Hanukkah. So that was very exciting. But the sweetest thing was when my grandson said to me, Savta, this menorah is too childish for me. I want a new menorah. So we already got him one, and he's very happy, and he's using it.
Oh, that's great. So what is it designed like? What does it look like? Does it have like a, dogs, Disney theme? I mean, all these menorahs have different themes these days.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
This one is like a grown-up one, like shaped like that and with blue stones on it. Very boyish.
That's
So
wonderful.
I just thought it was great that he asked me for a new one.
Great. No, that's terrific. You can maybe send him the one that's right behind me at the Tower of David.
Yeah, right.
He would like that. Maybe Seth would like that in front of his house.
The only thing is, I feel like my favorite Martian. I've got these antennae, or maybe antlers, maybe I'm a
Right.
reindeer. I don't know, but it's I have to move over a little so I won't be. You can see it. You can see this beautiful menorah. Anyway, thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to?
Yeah, I have something.
Go ahead, Joan.
Our children don't live here anymore, so I'm feeling kind of bereft, not even to have one on a Jewish holiday. So a friend in Manhattan invited us to a very large Hanukkah party on last Sunday, and it was really nice to have Hanukkah with this whole group of people. And also it was a diverse group. It wasn't like everybody was a Jewish couple from Stamford. So some were single, some were young, some were old. It was very, very, very nice. And she made, latkes and a great meal, and it was very nice. Very New York-y, an Upper West Side apartment in a building that's about 130 years old. Rent controlled.
Oh, very New York.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have
Go ahead.
one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Well, actually, I have two brief ones. First of all, yesterday, Jerry and I went to the government center, and there were some other people from Bethel there to light Hanukkah candles with the mayor. And I spoke to her, and her father is Jewish, and she told me that her father gave her a family heirloom menorah. And even though she's married to someone who's not Jewish and she's half Jewish, she says it's really important for her children that they light this menorah and understand the story of survival, which I was very impressed with. She's an incredibly impressive person. And the other is that we have a daughter-in-law, Ruth's wife, who is also not Jewish, although she had one Jewish grandfather on her father's side. When we were in the Berkshires a couple of years ago, there's a Judaica shop in Lenox, and we walked in, she says, I want to buy my own menorah. And she did, and she is actually in Germany right now visiting her sister, and she insisted on bringing her menorah with her because she wanted to make sure she could light the candles while she was in Germany. So my kind of not really Jewish daughter-in-law is lighting a menorah in Germany right now.
Then there is one, usually a big one lit right in front of the Brandenburg Gate during the holiday. So it's not that unusual in Germany these days. So yeah, I was able to celebrate with Ethan and Mara's brother Andrew in Pasadena last week, and it really was wonderful to be able to see the Californian side of the family, to spend a few days with them over Hanukkah, and to leave that beautiful warm weather and come back to this. But it was nice. It was really nice. So great, thank you all. Unless anyone
Thanks.
else. Anyone else?
I think Sandy and Leo and Mia wanted to talk.
All right, well, just jump in, because I'm not looking at the gallery view now. So go ahead, jump in.
Well, it's with COVID, it's been a while since we've seen the kids from New Jersey. And even when they did come before going off to summer camp, they'd be out in the backyard with masks. So it was really, really hard to really get to see them. And when you ask them what's doing, you usually get nothing, or what's happening, no, they don't know. And so that was sort of interesting. But on Hanukkah, what we've been doing now for years with the three boys is we ask them to select a charity that we can make a contribution in their honor. And it's amazing because we find out what they're into. And so this year, both Ezra and Asher selected the Audubon Society of New Jersey. One got wilderness survival and one got environmental protection. So I guess they're into the Audubon Society. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. And Lucas picks the same one every year. He just changes the animals. He likes heifer, where you select animals to donate. And this year he did ducks.
Great.
So
Thank you. I notice a theme developing here: Germany and the Audubon. So go ahead, Leo. Did you want to say something?
Sure. It's Mia talking.
Oh, Mia.
first.
Okay, go ahead.
Thumbs up also to the Judaica store in Lenox.
Oh my God.
By the way, but we've been celebrating with friends. One night we had friends who some of them had never celebrated Hanukkah before, and it was really meaningful to tell them the story and why we do this. And they had so much fun spinning a dreidel until the lights and the candles were all burnt out. And then we had another friend over who asked, could you wait to light candles for me? Because he didn't get to light candles with other Jewish people very often. So it was nice.
Thank you. And thank you for having that Chanukiah lit in front of us. I love that. It brings so much warmth. And I think there was one more, right?
Well, I have something.
Go ahead, Marcia.
It's a little bit different. My kids are all over the place, and they do their thing and whatever. However, it seems to be a tradition that's grown in my family for all the holidays, that we do what we do, and then when we can get together after the holiday, before the holiday, then we have a party. So sometime next week after Hanukkah, we're going to have a Hanukkah party, and we will light the menorah again. And I think that's fine. We will do candles, we will give gifts, we will do the whole thing.
It's a little bit of a secret, but there are 12 nights of Hanukkah. And
Yes, exactly.
It's not because of the song. It's because the gifts that were brought to the sanctuary that are commemorated, although it was not called Hanukkah, it wasn't a holiday back then, but Book of Numbers, we read that section. It wasn't 8 nights. It wasn't 8 days. It was more than that. So anyway, Hanukkah can last as long as you want. The spirit of
Sometimes
Hanukkah.
we have the 4th night of Passover or whatever.
I would say
Whatever
Hanukkah
works.
should end before Passover. It's going to be a little hard to have those donuts, but
We will do it.
otherwise, anytime. That's great. So why don't we continue with our service? Thank you so much. And here is the Psalm of Gratitude. Mizmor shir leyom hashabbat. Mizmor shir leyom hashabbat. And in the middle of the page, Magadlu Masechaya Meod Amku Machshevo Techa Magadlu Masechaya Meod Amku Machshevo Techa. Hallelujah. 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 Aninevum b'seva d'shenim rananim yiyu lagik yashar donai tzuri v'lo avlatabo. And we rise for the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer. Don't look at this because you'll get dizzy. Okay. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. And we are seated, and this prayer is perfect for Hanukkah and Rosh Chodesh, speaking of the cycles of the days, the months, the cycles of time, and the movement from light to darkness and darkness to light. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. El Chai V'Kayam, Tamdim Lo Chaleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv, Haravim. Page 40. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Alakein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shachbeinu v'kumeinu, nasiyach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה, ובתחלת ממנו לעולמים. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, ועם שמוע תשמעו על מצוותיי. We continue silently with the rest of the Shema. Hayom Adonai Moshe Lemor. Daber b'nei Israel. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's turn now to page 44. Michamocha, the great prayer of triumph at the Red Sea. And you look at the first letters of each of the words, Michamocha, Elohim, or Ba'elim Adonai. It spells out Maccabee. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם, משה ומרים מבני ישראל לחנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה, זה אלינו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Yisrael. And the prayer for peace. And let's also use this as our prayer for safety and good health and healing. So feel free to put any names into the chat. I know we've had people near and dear to the congregation who've taken ill with COVID and other illnesses over the last few weeks. And we think of all of them. We think of everyone in the world tonight in need of warmth and peace. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim, ve'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, וילמד יברח חירותי, וימליך מלכותי. חייכון וברכון בכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, ויעלם עולמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, Beat Waviderma, beat Nase, Mita Darby the Levin Lal, Shmeda Kucha, Brechu, Leela, Min Kol Berchata, Veshirata, Tushbachata, Venechemata, Damiran Bialma, Vimeru. Amen. So what I'd like to do now, generally on Zoom, it's hard to have a lot of silence, although we certainly can do that. But I want to share with you the link for anyone who feels rushed and would like to make sure they do the whole Amida. There's actually a special prayer for Rosh Chodesh, Ya'aleh V'Yavo, that's included. But meanwhile, there is one prayer that we also include, the Al Hanisim prayer for Hanukkah, and unfortunately it's not in our PDF. So I'm going to do that with you together. So those who'd like to do the Amida, the silent traditional Amida, feel free to do that. Others can join me in this Al Hanisim, the miracles prayer, that, as you can see, comes from the Siddur, was written about 875. So in Jewish terms, it's pretty recent, and it incorporates various themes of the theology of Hanukkah, the history of Hanukkah, and ties it into the blessing of gratitude of the Amida. And of course, it begins with the words Al Hanisim. Al Hanisim ve'al ha'purkan ve'al ha'gvurot ve'al ha'tshuvot ve'al ha'milchamot she'asita lavoteinu b'yamim ha'hem b'zman hazeh. Al Hanisim ve'al ha'purkan ve'al ha'gvurot ve'al ha'tshuvot ve'al ha'milchamot she'asita lavoteinu b'yamim ha'hem b'zman hazeh. Al Hanisim ve'al ha'purkan ve'al ha'gvurot ve'al ha'tshuvot ve'al ha'milchamot she'asita lavoteinu b'yamim ha'hem b'zman hazeh. You might see this little cartoon on the top of the page. And this page is a really good discussion sheet with lots of information about this prayer and ties into other elements, aspects of Hanukkah and the history of it. So I shared with you the link for that too, so you can look at it on your own. But meanwhile, we're going to go through the Al Hanisim actual prayer. Whoops. I think it's... Okay, we're looking at the story. Here it is. Well, this is the actual story. Now we go down from the book of Maccabees, Antiquities of the Jews, Josephus, the Mishnah Torah. How does it play out? Okay, here's how it appears. On Hanukkah, in the days of Matityahu the Hashmonai, the son of Yochanan, the great priest, not the grand priest, by the way, not the high priest, he was just a really great priest, and his sons, when the wicked Greco-Syrian kingdom rose up against your people Israel to make them forget your Torah and to turn them away from the laws of your will, you in your abundant mercy rose up for them in the time of their trouble. You fought their fight, judged their cause, and avenged them with vengeance. You delivered the strong into the hands of the weak, the many into the hands of the few, the impure into the hands of the pure, the wicked into the hands of the righteous, and the arrogant into the hands of those engaged with your Torah. For yourself you made a great and holy name in your world, and for your people Israel you made a great deliverance and redemption as on this day. After these things, your children came to your sanctuary of your house, cleansed your temple, purified the place of your holiness, kindled lights in your holy courts, and established these 8 days of Hanukkah in order to give thanks and praises to your great name. I mean, it's a fascinating prayer. For one thing, what's missing? The oil. It doesn't have the oil, and yet it takes the every other element of the God-centric theology here. God won the battle for us, not the Maccabees, not human military triumph. They were really afraid of that, even all the way up in the 9th century. And yet it doesn't deny that the Maccabees had a military triumph or that they were great people, including Mattathias. when closer to his time, they would have denied that completely. So it's a fascinating prayer, and it tries to transform what could be a very militaristic holiday into something very Thanksgiving-like, very God-centric, and we're just grateful for the miracle of being alive, of being together as a people. All right.
Rabbi,
Yes, go ahead, Joan.
was Josephus not a Jew?
No, he was a Jew,
He was a Jew.
but he was
Okay.
also very high up on the Roman side of things, and
Right.
did not support the war against Rome much later than the Maccabees War. But he was not, in that sense, militaristic, and yet, he's pretty okay with this.
Okay.
So that is the prayer that I wanted to add to your Amida, and hopefully you'll get to do the rest of the Amida too at some point. But we'll conclude this Amida section by singing Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael. All right. So I want to share something with you tonight. I think it's pretty special, and it's something that really could only do on Shabbat at services when we have an all Zoom service. I wanted to, do something that it's a little nostalgic to be able to do this because we were doing it for so long. But also Zoom has many disadvantages, but it has some advantages too. So I want to just take you to a place. You can see this photo. Can you all see it? This picture?
Mhm.
Just someone say yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I learned this story really just this week. And it pays to take 5-hour flights. Although I wouldn't say necessarily Breeze Airline is the way to go, but we can talk about that offline if you have any questions. But one of the things that I had downloaded that I watched was All Quiet on the Western Front, the new German version of the movie that's up for an Oscar for Best Foreign Picture. And it's a remarkable movie. But one of the things that, of course, a remarkable book, remarkable movies before this version. But one of the things that astounded me is that if you look at Germany, not necessarily in the villainized, demonized way that they were portrayed in order to fight them in World War I, and there certainly were some very bad things about Germany then, and certainly not as the Germany that emerged in the 30s and 40s, but just sort of take it as it was. And that's what the movie really does. It's sort of apolitical. It's really talking about human beings, about people, and how they managed to find a sense of humanity in the most inhumane of wars. This is a picture. It's sort of an iconic image. This is a picture that's known. In fact, so well known that it's been colorized. No, they didn't have color photos back in 1916. This is a group of Jewish soldiers in the German army on Hanukkah. Of course, you can see the Hebrew letters say Hanukkah 1916, and not just to light the candle and celebrate, but to warm themselves by the light. I mean, you see clearly it is snowy. What astounded me about this photo was all of these soldiers are Jews. I would assume. Why would anyone pose for a picture and behind a menorah? I mean, I'm sure there were some who were very, friends with Jews, some of their best friends perhaps, but that they were looking at this. And so there are a lot of Jewish soldiers in the German army. We knew that before that, but this really brings it home. Not only that, but there's a very special person who's in the center, the one with the beard, a lot of mustaches, but the one with the beard just to the right and above the menorah. He was the chaplain. And he wasn't just any chaplain. He was was a very well-known and important Jewish German military chaplain called a Feldrabbiner. Usually these were Reform clergy. Remember, the Reform movement was very popular in Germany. It started in Germany. So most Jews who would especially be in the war would be Reform or totally secular. But he was the chaplain. And there are other photos of him so that he could be positively identified, because there are no names you could see in that Hanukkah photo. There aren't a lot of pictures of him that remain, but we know a little about him. His name was Siegfried Klein, and he was born in Red, Germany, R-H-E-Y-D-T, in 1882. He studied at the Hochschule für die Wissenschaft des Judentums in Berlin, basically Academy of Jewish Studies, the precursor of the seminary in its philosophy and its style of JTS. He got his PhD on the topic of death and burial in the Tannaitic era. Anyway, he was drafted during World War I, served for a year at the front, received an Iron Cross, somewhat ironic, I guess, then appointed and served as the Jewish chaplain 1916 to 1918. This is a picture of him in his office in 1916. And you can see that he wore a Star of David, but this was not, the yellow star that we think of later on, but in fact, it was to identify him as a Jewish chaplain. It was a military symbol in terms of the German military. He also wore ID around his neck, and you can see it here. So religious ID is very important in some ways. When I'm wearing a yarmulke visiting hospitals or patients elsewhere, people can quickly identify me and as a rabbi in some ways, although many Jews wear yarmulkes. But that's sort of the idea here of wearing the Star of David, that he could be quickly identified in a positive way. So this is just so, heartwarming in a way, although we're talking about Germany and World War I, so it can only be so heartwarming. Anyway, here is a picture with other soldiers. He's on the right, the guy with the beard. This is on the Western Front during World War I, and he served faithfully. He felt himself to be a German patriot, of course, a German citizen, absolutely, full and complete, and whether or not accepted, well, in every country in Europe, there was a certain degree of anti-Semitism, as there was, I'm sure, there. But this is a story of a hero. After the war, let's see if I can do this here. There's another, all right, so there's his Iron Cross. Here he became a rabbi in Dusseldorf. He married Lily Plotke in 1920. 2 children, Hannah and Julius. Anyway, I'll come back to Julius, and that was Julius growing up. So cut to, the chase here. Kristallnacht came, and their home was invaded, and there was, of course, murder and destruction all about. Julius, Rabbi Klein, this rabbi was arrested and sent to prison for a certain amount of time. The kids got out on the Kindertransport. So his two kids, whoops, let's do this, managed to escape. And the story, of course, does not end happily. The wife died relatively quickly during the Holocaust. And this hero, this rabbi, this iconic figure of the German military, Siegfried Klein, was killed in Auschwitz. So it seems like, well, just sort of a typical story of that begins in hope and ends in destruction and in sadness. But I went a little bit further, and I looked at the obituary for this man, Julius Klein, the son of this great hero. Whoops. You'll see what that is in a second. So anyway, Julius grew and lived out his life in London. He died at age 91, just a few years ago, 2017, February of 2017. He was much loved, as his father, of course, had been before the Holocaust. And he became sort of the sexton, the shamus of the Portsmouth Synagogue. He was on the board of management, and he often led Shabbat services. He was active in interfaith development, religious education, and put his considerable intellectual and artistic gifts to good use, to writing, to drawing. In 1998, with his niece, Marion, so that's his sister's daughter, he finally visited Dusseldorf for the first time since 1939, where a street and Jewish youth center had been named after his father. So Julius Klein, born 1925, died 2016. Okay. Now, you think of just the fact that we have this very tragic tale, this very sad tale, but the flame refused to go out. And this week, at the same time I was reading these stories about the Klein family, I read about these kids. I don't know if you saw this. It's in the Times of Israel and elsewhere. A group of children at a kibbutz in northern Israel, kibbutz Parod, were walking around a couple of weeks ago, literally a couple of weeks ago, and they found a 2,000-year-old oil lamp that you see right there that was sort of just sticking out of the ground. There had been an excavation nearby and recent rains that probably uncovered it, and it's in almost perfect condition. This oil lamp, this original menorah, comes from the time of the Maccabees, or around the time at least of the later Maccabees. It's a complete oil lamp and in perfect Hanukkah fashion. They made it out of clay. They brought it to their parents, who brought it to the Israel Antiquities Authority. And so, although we're talking about tragedy within the last generation or two, we're also talking at the same time about a lamp that was lit literally by the founders of this holiday or their immediate descendants 2,000 years ago. And it's a typical lamp. They can tell it's from a Jewish settlement because it's not very ornate. It's intricately detailed, but fairly simple in its design. So one of the Antiquities Authority directors said, every year, thanks to the timing of rains that hit us before and close to the Hanukkah holiday, we receive Hanukkah miracles and amazing surprises, glimpses coming from the ground, he said, referring to the theme of Hanukkah, which tells of a small amount of oil for lamps in the Jewish temple in Jerusalem that miraculously lasted for 8 days instead of the expected single day. And that lamp is a symbol of that endurance. The flame refuses to go out. Both the flame of the Jewish people and, tied into the visit by our modern Maccabee, President Zelensky this week, the flame of freedom. So happy Hanukkah, everyone. So let's continue. All right. Whoops, hold on one second. Actually, you don't need to see this in the book. Let's continue with the Kiddush. So everyone please rise, and I'm going to go over to the other table to get my wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher gijanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu ושבת קדשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת, amen l'chaim. And we remain standing. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latekidu laliotzer breshit, shelo asanu geratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Please be seated. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. And we recall in loving memory this coming week the yahrzeits of Sylvia Bienstock, Samuel Blumenthal, Martin Davis, Menachem Dayan, Roger Didesheim, Susan Friedman, Nathan Gottlin, Baruch Halpern, Cantor Michael Hammerman, Alfred Hill, Cecilia Kaufman, Harriet Kirschenbaum, Rosalie Koster, Martin Korenthal, Jack Letterman, Jeffrey Letterman, Francis Malamet, Ann Pierce, Victor Resnick, Nathan Rizak, Celia Saltzman, Morris Schneider, Roz Schreiber, Max Chevron, Anna Sobel, James Spiegel, Barbara Stout, Harry Sverdlov, Maurice Villency, Irving Warsaw, Leonard Weber, Tessie Weissman, Walter Wertheim, and Beatrice Wise. Those who mourn or recall yahrzeit, now rise and feel free to unmute to join in the mourners' Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayed v'chol beit Yisrael b'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach li'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu. V'yela minkol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata lamiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Vicky, you're
Yes.
our reader. Do you have some announcements?
I do have some announcements. So first, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. I'm so glad that I'm able to see some friendly faces, and thank you, Rabbi, for carrying the whole service solo. We really appreciate it. I also wanted to say there's some interesting comments in the chat. I don't know if everybody got to see them about his ancestors who were involved in the Kindertransport and in fighting in Germany and Austria. So kind of cool. Anyway,
Yes, thank you all for doing that. I just read them. Beautiful.
Yeah, really interesting. So tomorrow's service is 10 a.m. It's a Zoom service only. And Sunday Minyan is at 9 a.m. Both are Zoom only. And then tomorrow night, They're going to be doing the Stamford shelters for Christmas Eve. So if anybody would like to volunteer, it's always greatly appreciated. And thank you everyone who donated, and thank you for volunteering. On tomorrow, 5 p.m., Rabbi, you're going to be leading a Zoom menorah lighting.
I haven't seen.
Okay.
Was that in the announcements? Because
That is in the,
it-
well, Scott told me about it. So you
right. No,
can,
but
you can
we were
tell
talking
me.
about doing it, and then I went away, and I didn't see anything
Okay.
announced. So I don't see any Zoom link. Is there a Zoom link?
I don't know. We can ask Scott and we'll find out. So
Right, but it wasn't going to be tomorrow
TBD
anyway.
on that one.
It was going
Okay.
to be Sunday, because that's the 8th night.
Oh, Christmas Day, right, Christmas Day,
Right, not
yes.
tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Mhm, not tomorrow.
Right.
Right, okay. And then I know we have not a whole, let's see. I mean, everybody can look at the events, but I know we have the hearing men's voices is coming up, and I'm just pulling up my computer, which is a little frozen, but yeah, we got Heart to Heart support group on December 28th, and Hearing's Men Voices on January 12th, and don't forget Temple Rock on February 4th. And that's it. Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and a happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah, and thank you. I don't know if you're on gallery or you can see this full picture, but I wanted to come back to this photo because I just find it so moving. The whole story of this chaplain is moving, but this picture in particular, because it speaks to the deep Jewish connection that, we think of the Jewish population in Germany at the time, and some of you had relatives, so you would know better, of being very assimilated, but they were able to be very loyal to their country, but at the same time, had this deep Jewish connection, and certainly had a need for Hanukkah where they were fighting, which was just so horrific. So anyone who wrote in the chat, if they want to elaborate for a second before we conclude, please feel free.
Yeah, I'm on mute.
No, you're on.
I just wanted to say that the timing is very interesting for me because yes, my grandfather did fight for the Kaiser. My father was on the Kinder transport, and my grandfather got the Iron Cross. I'd love to look at that picture. I don't know if I would ever be able to recognize him young because I only knew him when he was quite a bit older. But also it happens to be, my father was on the Kinder transport. My grandfather came over later, a little bit later, a few weeks later. It took him a whole year to get my father from England to the US. So by the time he got here, he was 15. And he had spent a whole year without anyone. He was an only child, and his mother had already died of natural causes. And I just want to say it happens to be my father's yahrzeit this week. And it just is very meaningful to me to see this kind of history, this German history. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, it's my father's, as you heard as well. Yeah, this is really a time to pay tribute to those who showed such courage coming before us, Bayamim Hahem Bazman Hazeh, in those days and in our time too. Yeah, so I've got the picture up there if you can recognize anyone. Did he have a mustache? Seems like they all did. Anyway, it is.
I'd have to look through his old picture. I have old pictures, and I'd have to look at your picture. I don't know if he's in that picture, but there were probably thousands of Jewish soldiers fighting for the Kaiser at that time. I mean, they were German.
Yep.
They fought for the Kaiser. That's what you did. They were patriots.
And you look at all those pictures, you see all those faces, and you just can imagine the disappointment that was sinking in slowly but surely as the 30s went through, and especially for someone like this rabbi who couldn't just abandon his community in Dusseldorf. Finally, eventually, he realized it was time to get his kids out, and thank God he did just in time.
It's also, when you think about it, it was only 20 years later. I mean, it's really an incredibly short time from when these were German heroes to when they were being put into prisons. It's incredible.
And worse, right? Yeah, I mean, it is amazing to think. So I think we'll conclude with Oseh Shalom, but in a Ma'ot Sur melody. Ose shalom bimroma vuyase shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'emeru amen v'emeru Ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Shabbat shalom to everyone. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, we'll be on Zoom only, but I got the Torah right here with me. 10 o'clock. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye, everybody.
Have some latkes. All right, good to see all of you.
You brought 3 Torahs home with you?
No, just one. I'm going to keep rolling it. Except you're doing all the reading, so I'm just going to follow along. Or I think you're doing some of them anyway.
Doing some of them. Susan's doing some.
Yeah.
Have a
Okay.
wonderful, wonderful holiday, Ginsburg family.
Yes, have a
Enjoy. Go in health and come in health.
safe trip.
Yes.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you again, Vicky.